I'm Happy Dave, and in this video we're looking at a talk that I gave last night for Ecamm Live Tech Summit on MultiAgent workflows, and specifically we're looking at a framework that I've been putting together called Emotional Support Spiders. In this video we'll be covering the prompt engineering, the AI workflows and agents, and also talking about how I'm putting together a system for multiple character, multiple storylines with videography to fit. So if you're currently a YouTuber or a storyteller online and you're using AI at the moment, you might be concerned about whether in the future AI is going to get rid of you from the picture, or is it something that's going to give you superpowers over time? So in this video, we're looking at different aspects of storytelling and visualization with AI. For instance, in the next 5 years, it's predicted that 90% of all content online will be AI generated one way or another. So here I'm talking about the AI workflows that I use and what I'm suggesting might be good for creators. And I do it through what I call the S.C.A.L.E framework. So let's power up, get on our superpowers, and have a look at what we can do today with video content generation and movies.
Are forged in the fires of the YouTube battlefield. Only the strongest, the most persistent, the most clickbait-driven warrior will survive. In the kingdom of content, views, our power them shows no mercy. Happy Dave was once just a creator. But when the prophecy called for 555 videos in 55 weeks, across 5 channels, he answered. He has climbed the treacherous mountain of mastery, where many have fallen. He has battled burnout, braved the shadowban swamps, and faced the dreaded demonetization dungeon. He has studied the sacred texts, viral thumbnails, retention graphs, and every cat video in search of the ultimate truth. Is he a genius? A madman? A man haunted by the ghosts of unfinished edits? No one knows, but one thing is certain. He won't stop until he finds the answer or loses his mind trying. This is the ridiculous legend of Happy Dave and the 555 Manifesto.
So that was Happy Dave and the 555 Manifesto, which is a Hollywood-style blockbuster video trailer that I put together a couple of months ago for a different tech summit. And what I want to do is talk about how I'm putting these together across multiple channels. So let's look at one of the fundamental ideas that are needed to succeed on YouTube. And this comes from Mr. Beast when asked the question, why after I've done 10 videos am I not seeing any subscribers or views? And he says that unless you've done 100 videos and looked at how to improve on each and every video, don't bother wasting his time. And what I did a couple of years ago was think, can I do that 100 videos, but can I do it across 5 different channels? So for some time now, I've been using this metaphor called the mountain of mastery, which is a spiral learning metaphor that says that as you go around the mountain, at each stage, you can see something different. But as you go around the mountain a couple of times and you look at a higher level, you have more clarity around what it is you're seeing. And I find this happens to be the case across concepts like YouTube titles, how to write descriptions, how to do hooks, how to do outros. As I go through the mountain of mastery over time, I learn a little bit more. And what I wanted to do with that knowledge is encapsulate it into AI agents for YouTube automation. And that's where the 555 Manifesto started a couple of years ago in a conversation with ChatGPT, where I said, can I create 555 videos in 55 weeks across 5 different channels? And looking to do that using automation systems. Now, to start achieving that, I had to put in place a new system of thinking and automation, and I call that the S.C.A.L.E framework. And the idea of the S.C.A.L.E framework is that we start from the point of view of structured prompt engineering. The ability to communicate with AI is one of the fundamental skills that we need the way we're using large language models today. Once you understand how to do the prompt engineering, you can move into prompt chains or crafting different workflows or standard operating procedures that automate certain parts of your business or your YouTube content creation. After that, I like to package it all up in agents. Now, these agents might be pure automations, or they might be automations with human-in-the-loop concepts. After that, we want to hook into low-code tools. So let's say you've done a video, you've generated an article based off the video. You then want to be able to push that directly into your WordPress site, or you might want to upload assets to Canva. And this is where low-code automation can kick in. The last thing that we're ultimately trying to do is become more productive. So how do we empower content creators to get a whole lot of stuff done, which is involved with this business, with the limited resources of just some AI agents? So let's start off with a tutorial on effective prompt engineering. And to do that, we're going to do it from a storytelling perspective by talking about a woman and her cat in New York as a storytelling construct. And when I'm doing prompt engineering, it's all about breaking it down into the component parts, such as in this case, a structured sequence of events. We've also got the protagonist, which happens to be the woman, the environment or the scene, which happens to be New York, and the fact that she has another character, being her cat. With that information in place, we give the structure of what we want to create, which is a 5-scene write-up, and we would like something dramatic, maybe in the 3rd scene. And from there, we end up getting storytelling that's over 5 different scenes. Now, the next thing that we want to do from here is get some sort of visualization. But before we do the visualization, we need to create what's called a shot list. Now, the shot list is just a simple continuation of the story we just created, just with a little bit of output formatting. In this case, create a simplified shot list, and we see that information coming through. And there's a lot of visual componentry going into what's being written. Now that we've got the story and the shot list, we can go into generating prompts that allow us to generate these images in something like Leonardo AI. Now, to create images effectively, the things that are important is that firstly, we continue the context of the previous part of the conversation with an output format, which is generate a concise image prompt. After that, we give the aesthetic style that we want. It's pretty simple here. It's just New York City, a woman, 2025. And then lastly, because there are multiple characters, we want to make sure that each of the characters are stylistically the same in every scene. Last thing we need is to see a cat that's brown in one scene and black in the next scene. So we continue the conversation, and one of the things that you notice is that all the image prompts that have been generated all have the same fluffy orange tabby cat in each of the scenes. So hopefully we're going to get visual consistency. So when we start running this through Leonardo AI, you end up with a bunch of images that look pretty good. We can notice in the 3rd scene that there is a dramatic issue going on here. The cat is escaping in the park. So we have our final story of the woman in her 30s in New York with her cat. But what if we want to take this same story and restructure it for a different period in time? And for this, let's go with Elizabethan times or Shakespeare, Hamlet sort of style. From that, we can just take a new prompt, a reframe prompt. We ensure that the woman and the cat are in each scene, but the scene should be quite different because it's a different period in time. And we do have a reinforcement part of the prompt that says that only image prompts are expected. The woman and the cat should have visual consistency across every scene. And so now we have our noble woman and her cat in London. It's a similar sort of concept, but one of the things that you notice when you see them side by side is that there is a little bit of a flaw. The blonde woman in the first scene is a little bit different colored blonde, and then she becomes silver, and then a darker brunette, followed by silver at the end. And what we're looking at is what I call instructional collapse in prompt engineering. So in the next section, let's see how we can improve that with AI workflows. So in the S.C.A.L.E framework, we've just looked at structured prompt engineering. Now we're going to look at crafting workflows. And these are simple prompt chains that you put in place to execute the same sort of instructions over and over again in a systematic way. And I like to use them in 3 main areas: business optimization, creative processes like you see in this presentation or in a lot of the YouTube videos I do, or personal productivity, maybe writing an email or a Facebook message. Now, if you're doing workflows correctly, you also have extended tools such as fine-tuning, retrieval augmented generation, memory, human in the loop to interact with the AI, and maybe different models to solve different problems. So let's have a look at it from a marketing agency point of view. So let's say you're a digital marketing company and you've got a lot of workflows that you're doing for many clients, and it's the same workflows over and over again. And this was one such company I was working with, and we were looking at the different workflows they've got and just putting them into structured prompt chains that they could run over and over again. Now, one of the things I found interesting about working with this company is that there's a lot of similarity between being a YouTuber publishing LinkedIn articles and being an SEO agency creating various forms of content. I also worked recently with a branding agency, and what they had put in place already was competitive analysis, market research tools in the form of prompt packs. And these prompt packs were done in Canva. They had nice little video walkthroughs of how to use them, and they were quite simple in nature, basically a bunch of prompts that a customer could just copy, paste into large language model of choice, maybe modify a few input variables. So this is a simplistic way of getting your first prompt chains up and running. Now, as a YouTuber, using prompt chains can be effective in all sorts of areas like creation and optimization of your content. You might want to repurpose and redistribute it as an article or as a carousel, or you might want to deal with analyzing the comments or building some sort of offer to a sponsorship deal. So let's look at a tool I use internally called the Agent Workflow Builder to create videos. And one of the workflows I go through is the YouTube Launch Optimizer. It's a 30-step workflow that I go through every time I release a video. But one of the steps involved here is the YouTube titles. So when we were looking at the video at the beginning of this session called the 555 Manifesto and the Mountain of Mastery, I would have run that through a title generator. I would have said the short title is the 555 Manifesto. Its main topic is it's about spiral learning, and I would put in a couple of content highlights. Now, the good thing about this is it would run a prompt through ChatGPT in this case, and we'd get a bunch of YouTube titles ready to get started. Now, personally, I use VidIQ a lot when I want to use title generation, but what I love about doing it within the Agent Workflow Builder is I have full control over the way titles are being created. So I use it as a first pass, and then I finish off with VidIQ. So let's get into a more detailed workflow. Let's look at story building. And in the video that we saw at the beginning, it starts off with legends are forged in the fires of the YouTube battlefield. Let's just play that for a second so that you can see what it sounds like.
Agents are forged in the fires of the YouTube battlefield. Only the strongest, the most persistent.
And so you can see there that we've got nothing more than a transcript. And with this transcript, we can run it through various processes. So the first one I want to look at is the shot list that we talked about with the woman in New York, and we're doing some prompt engineering around coming up with shot lists. And one of the things that you notice with a scene is that there's more than one concept going here. Firstly, we've got the scene itself is a mountain in the background, but in the foreground, we've got two different ideas going on. Firstly, we've got the protagonist, the hero in the story, in the red robes. The second thing we've got is a main artifact or item. In this case, it happens to be a sword. Now, these specific details are really important when you're generating graphics and prompts and stuff like that. So I start off with the primary character generator, and this is where I work through and solidify what the character is going to look like. After that, I'll look at the other characters that might be the villains, they might be the other characters within the story, and how do I get them consistently looking the same across different scenes. After that, I want to work on the scenes themselves. Can I come up with a style that's repeatable, that I can reuse to get nice effects? And one of the things that you see in a scene is there's all sorts of objects, but sometimes there's a major object, and the major object would be something like the 555 Manifesto, where I want to define that and work through consistently being able to reproduce it in various scenes of the video. Now, as an example, and we'll only talk about the primary character, I've developed two different styles. So here I've put myself in a black shirt and I've run it through style 1 and style 2. I decided I liked style 2 more, but I didn't want to work with the black shirt, so I just took a different picture. And you can see that the image on the right was used in the Mountain of Mastery YouTube trailer. Now, with crafting workflows out of the way, let's look into the next two sections, which is AI agents and using low-code tools. So an AI agent is an automation generally, but quite often we'll also do a human-in-the-loop sort of visual interface. So when it comes to using VidIQ, we can see that a video that I put in a title and it said, your score is only 66. But what it did was suggest better ones, and I went with the one that was 96. So this is a very simple human-in-the-loop interface backed by agent workflows, such as the one that I build for myself. But another way of looking at this, and this is where low-code tools can come in, is that you can use a tool like Pickaxe. Now, I've done 4 videos on this particular tool, but just as a recap, if we look at these little tools that are AI driven, such as the YouTube title generator, again, working on similar principles to what we saw in the agent workflow builder, you can come along, fill in a little bit of information and get a list of titles generated, all using a tool that you can market, you can reuse, you can give away to different people. Another tool that I've done is the video advertisement script writer. And the idea of this is creating an advert script that converts. So you put in a few inputs, and here we've got the hook that says, hey, yeah, you scrolling mindlessly, still thinking of those get-rich-quick videos will save your ass. Spoiler alert, they won't. And that's a hook. We got the pain and the villain, the reveal, and then the call to action all at the end of it. So with the S.C.A.L.E framework out of the way, let's move on to emotional support spiders. This is something that I came up with a couple of years ago working with ChatGPT. And the idea was looking at the concept of emotional support animals or companion animals and doing it differently, doing it as a storytelling in a multiverse sort of event. And so this is called emotional support spiders. It's an idea in which there are two sentient races. You've got humans and you've got spiders. And what we're trying to do within it is create buddy stories. And this has been thought of from the very beginning as a multi-agent storytelling system where each story can have irony and contrast. We can create trust and connection between two different characters that are quite different from one another. We can explore concepts like truth and trauma, hopefully so that we can get inspiration and hope out of it all. Now, from the multi-agent point of view, the images that you're seeing, which were done in Midjourney a couple of years ago, were the idea, could you take individual images of the spider and the human and create a story narrative, backstories? Can we create forward stories, joiner stories where people come together to form relationships? And this is where various agents that are either one-off, character related or storytelling are being reused over and over again. So the way I start storytelling is from a world narrative. This is a set of one-off agents that define the world that we live in. And the first agent is around philosophical view of the world. Do I want to have a bit of Buddhism? Do I want some Christianity? Do I want something else? And the way I like to do this is have a simple human-in-the-loop interface where I fill in a few values, and then behind the scenes use an agent workflow system such as N8N or Zapier to implement and build out all the information. After that, we can move on to a design and visualization agent. And when you look at the images in this screenshot at the moment, if we go back one and we see the spider and the man, and we've got all this stonework, it's a rock mural sort of system. And this is going to be repeated through the next set of slides. And to do this, we need to get a design guide going. So we start off by another human in the loop sort of input form, run it through a bunch of agents to come up with a consistent style that we want to use. Now, after that, we need to come up with a detailed fact sheet of what is a human and what is a spider. And you can think of it the same way as you might a role-playing game, a Dungeons and Dragons, where you've got these attribute sheets that make sense for humans, and you've got a different attribute sheets that make sense for monsters, as an example. With our general worldview agents in place, especially this species traits one, we can now move on to the character development itself. So if we're developing a human character, one of the things that we want to do is come up with the attributes, the sort of stuff that happens when they're born. So with that, do we want to know what their hair color is, the height that they grow to, what are their general fears and problems going on in life, what are their desires? We want to do this same concept with the spiders themselves. And we use a different agent mainly because the goals, the behaviors, they're going to be different between the two different species. With that in place, we can then start to build a timeline of where they are in life. So they got born, but maybe we've got a human that's 13 years of age. Can we build up a storyline from the attribute sheet all the way up to that period in time? Now, if we can do that, we can then start to determine the sort of behaviors and mannerisms that each character has. Now, before we build any stories around those characters, a couple of additional agents that can be useful is that if a scene, a scenario, an action happens, how does that change their behavior? What's their motivations? Do they lead into a positive sort of let's move forward in the world, or do they become a bit of a victim? Now, no matter what the mapping comes with, the next thing is to read that and put it back into the character. So if I have a confronting situation and I rise above it, how do we write that information back into the DNA of who I am as a character? With all our character development, our timelines in place, we can move on to scenario writing. And I like to have a different agent for the different types of scenarios that can happen in the emotional support spiders world. So the first one is that when you've got two characters that have never met, what brings them together? And usually that's a dramatic scene, such as a bird attacking the spider and a human coming in to save the spider in this particular case. Now that dramatic, emotionally charged scene can lead to a bonding, and with the bonding, we can then go into them sharing their backstory, sharing what they've done, and finding commonality in hanging out with one another. Now, the buddy story scenario is a classic in Hollywood. We've seen it in Lethal Weapon, Dumb and Dumber, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So what I like to do is, now that we've got this in place, how do these two characters move forward in the future? And we do that using a new sort of writer that is more on an episode by episode basis or a day-to-day basis. And so the first one we have is what we saw when we were looking at The Woman and Her Cat, a day in the life story. So we do a scenario-based story based on the idea that we have a world philosophical view. We had the design of the world. We understand what a human and a spider is from a characteristics point of view. We now also have the individual profile or DNA of the spider and the human, their timeline, their backstory. We also know how they came together in dramatic fashion to become friends. So now when we just paint a simple scene for a day in the life story, we've got all this rich information to drive it. After that, we want to move into the actual shot list. Again, we did that with The Woman and Her Cat. One of the things that happens though when you are doing shot lists, and we can use agents to do this, is not all scenes will be correct. So let's say we wanted grays and oranges throughout every scene, and we get one that's pink. In this particular case, we will tell the agent and say, look, you got this one a little bit incorrect. Can you regenerate the prompt so that we can regenerate the images? So that gives you some context of how emotional support spiders are put together with different agents. The next thing is looking a little bit at the technicality of it all. And it's really quite simple. What we do is we build little agent workflows. We can use tools like N8N, or we can code them directly in Python or JavaScript. From there, we just need to hook them up to human in the loop interfaces. So when we're building in the world philosophy, we'll run in a few pieces of information, send it to a workflow. After that, we want to figure out what's this world going to look like. It's just another workflow. When we get on to dealing with the human, this is on a per human basis or on a per spider basis. We're defining how they look, what their motivations are. After that, we run both workflows through the backstory generator, and we just continue to do this for each of the different agents that we're trying to build. So with everything in place, the next thing is to create a story of some form, and the day in the life stories can look like this. Here we have a boy and an emotional support spider in this particular case, and the boy has been invited to a party but doesn't know how to associate with people. So from there we add in a little bit of a narrative over the top of it, put in some magic animations, sort of stuff that we can do in Design or Leonardo AI. I've got links in the description for both of them. And from there we simply animate the scene. We've got the boy down at the beach and being befriended by a spider in this particular case. Later on, they're at his house where he's teaching them about computer programming and stuff like that. Later in the day, there's a dramatic scene. This time the father is angry upstairs, so there's a bit of comfort going. And then we finish the scene with a little bit of hope. They're down at the beach and they're playing together. So this was the presentation I gave over at Ecamm Live Leap last night, and it talks about the S.C.A.L.E framework, the structured prompts, creative workflows, the agents, the low code frameworks, and how we put it together to empower creators. And then moving on to the emotional support spiders, which is a system that's in developed by myself so that I can do multi-agent storytelling. Now, if you want to find out more about how the actual video structures are being put together, you can come over to the AI TLDR channel, where we do a lot of videos that are all AI generated, and there's a lot of storytelling going on. Or if you want to learn more about the Agent Workflow Builder, then just come to the Abby Dave website. I'm Abby Dave. Please book a call if you want to work one-on-one. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next